And we're here right now with Patrick Quinn, CEO of PQ Media. He just finished giving the keynote and moderating a panel here at MediaPost's Digital Out-of-Home Forum and Awards in New York City. The house was packed. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. He gave a great speech about some of the key challenges, some of the growth that digital out-of-home is facing. We wanted to focus on those key challenges here a little bit because North America is doing some things a little bit differently than some of the international markets. So the first question, Patrick, for you is how can North America emulate what some of the international markets are doing in order to increase DOOH spending?
In the U.S. and thank you for having me, by the way. Again, we're kind of on this world tour together, and there's like a whole collage of us who are on this junket that's going around the globe, talking about digital out-of-home opportunities and challenges. Yeah. So, anyway, back to your question, very good one. There's a lot of contrast between what's happening in the U.S. and what's happening overseas, and I was able to bring some of that out today through the key challenges. I didn't have enough time to talk about global, and so we can here. One of those is the cohesive voice that we see in places like leading markets outside the U.S., like the U.K. and Europe. Some of the larger markets of the UK, Germany, France, and then in Russia, and then in Asia, of course, China, and Japan is a relatively mature market. But the point is that in the US, the complaint from the brands and the agencies is, particularly the agencies, that there's just a lot of static, and I showed that the quote from that one agency executive that said, I saw three networks this morning, or three networks this week, and the first one came in and he was showing metrics, impressions per day. The next one was impressions per week, and the next one was impressions per month. And he said, how can I make a decision, for an effective solution, the most effective solution for my brand clients? And it's all about my brand clients, and that was another theme that came through too, that the networks need to focus on the brand client strategic objectives and not so much who they are and how they're defined and what budget they're going to be pulling from. So that cohesive voice, what that really means is that in the U.S. we have this sort of alphabet soup of organizations and associations, and it's everything from and not to deride any of them, it's just different than it is outside, and it's because it's a nation industry. You have DPAA and DSA, DSC, DSF, OAAA, et cetera. And in the UK, and given these are smaller markets, but China isn't exactly small, and in Japan, you'll have maybe two big associations. One's going to be out of home, one's going to be digital out of home, or it tends to be that way. But they work closely together, and they speak with one voice, or at least a cohesive voice for the brands and agencies, so that they can process easier, as we heard on the panel of our the agency power panel, that I guess as they called it. So we had some of the leading media agency execs talk about some of this stuff. I have more questions for them, but you heard them say that about the processing. They need to have an opportunity to process something more cohesive. You can't have 9 networks coming in with 9 different ways of looking at their network. We need a little bit more standardization in a number of areas, whether it's media buying and planning, which we were able to talk a little bit about, with all the different exchanges and aggregators, and then you have the different planning and buying tools, and do we need to have a little bit more cohesion there as well? And it sounds like they agreed with that too, that a little more centralization there would help as well. And I think as this business consolidates, it's not just on the operator and the network side, which is happening, and we again heard that needs to happen, and that would help. But there's also fragmentation in the agency business as far as the tools and the planning and what they're using and the software. And we heard IUTA launched, or they didn't launch, but they unveiled a futuristic concept for pay-per-view, which has been talked about for years as far as the iDwell technology and the facial recognition technology, which some people believe is a little bit creepy, and it gets into homeland security type stuff. But eventually it's going to happen, and it's moving faster. That's also moving faster outside the U.S. because there's less privacy concerns. I mean, there's cameras all over the UK and, and in Asia, and they've been working on this stuff for a while and testing it. So I think it is years away from being implemented here. It's just to scale it is very expensive, and we've been involved with some of that in pitching, a partnership where we do the research analysis for the firm that's doing the facial recognition or the iDwell technology, right. And we've heard from the operators that to scale it out once we did the numbers, it's very expensive, and most of the operators, as I showed on one of the slides there, and from our research, they're the vast majority, over 90%, are generating less than 10 million, and 2/3 of them are generating less than $1 million. So you've only got a few above that line that are generating, over 10 million or more. There's only one that's near the 100 million mark, or actually there's three, but two of them are the cinema, and after that you've got one other. The rest are down 50 or below, and so. It's going to take some time for that to happen.
So these are some of the key challenges that they're facing now, but it looks like there are technologies in place now that are coming. It's just a matter of time, like you said. I believe somebody on the panel, I think it was Tim, who said, it's maybe more evolutionary than revolutionary. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of time, and that could describe digital out of home as well, and just the way the technology prices have fallen, the way that the technology has improved as well. Now, you also mentioned something about integrated media solutions and kind of how digital out of home can fit into this. What is the advantage to taking that approach versus maybe a DOOH salesperson just saying, just buy DOOH, just buy DOOH? How do you see integrated media solutions really helping the industry?
I think we heard over and over and over again in the research that we did for the recently released Global Digital Out of Home Forecast, which was released a few weeks ago in March, and we talked a little bit about this in our last interview at the Digital Signage Expo. But what we've seen from the research is that the agencies in particular, and brands as well, they really value those companies, particularly in a nascent industry like this new media, that are willing to be flexible and become part of an integrated media solution, meaning that they're willing to be married with out-of-home on a plan. They're willing to be married with television and or online, interactive, other alternative media. They're open and flexible to becoming part of an integrated media solution, adding legs, as they sometimes say, or helping to activate other media. And I think I didn't get to that question on the panel because we ran out of time, but one of the questions I was going to ask is, do you see digital out-of-home and digital place-based networks in particular as having its own line item, or do you see it as being, a media activator going forward? Mm-hmm. So you almost have to be part of an integrated media solution. And I think if I did ask them that question, they would say, for the foreseeable future, that's right. I mean, if you're trying to sell against television, I showed the slide on that. It's the quote that television is dying, and marketers and brands are questioning its efficacy. It's just not true, and you hear that inside the industry a lot. It's been, I showed one public quote and didn't even use the name, but that's been said over and over again over the past 2 years, and it's not true. The next slide is really when did television start dying, because it's grown 10 years consecutively as far as viewership, and 8 out of 10 as far as ad spend, and the 2 that it was down, there were recession years where all of advertising was down. So, and this year it's going to be up in double digits again, as we can see from the upfront. So I think that in the end, the integrated media solution, that is one of the key challenges, because I think the place-based networks need to get on board with that if they want to grow and go to the next level. So it is one of the key challenges that came out in the research.
Sure, and integrated media, I think, is going to be something that we're going to be looking at a lot. Hopefully, none of the media die, because it's always nice to have different media out there. Patrick, thank you so much for your time. It was really great speaking with you. We look forward to talking with you again.